Welcome, brave souls, to another chilling tale from Haunted Whisper. Tonight, we delve into the dark heart of Blackwood Academy, where the line between education and indoctrination blurs into a nightmare. As we approach International Women's Day, prepare yourselves for a story that will make you question the very nature of sisterhood and power. Our protagonist, Sarah, thought she was embarking on a promising teaching career. Little did she know, she was stepping into a world of ancient rituals, eldritch horrors, and a cult that threatens to reshape reality itself. This is not just a tale of supernatural terror, but a journey into the depths of human ambition and the cosmic forces that lie just beyond our understanding. As you listen, remember, the shadows you see might be more than just tricks of the light, and the whispers in the dark might be calling your name. So dim the lights, lock your doors, and brace yourself for the Sisterhood, a terrifying Women's Day horror story. But beware, once you start, there's no turning back. The Sisterhood is waiting, and they're dying to meet you. Now let us begin our descent into madness. The Sisterhood, a terrifying Women's Day horror story. Sarah nervously smoothed her skirt as she stood outside the imposing iron gates of Blackwood Academy for Girls. The prestigious all-female boarding school loomed before her, a sprawling Gothic mansion of dark stone and twisting spires that seemed to claw at the gloomy sky. At 16 years old, Sarah was the newest and youngest teacher at Blackwood. Fresh out of college with her teaching degree, she had jumped at the opportunity when offered a position at the renowned institution. Now, staring up at the foreboding structure, Sarah felt a twinge of apprehension. There was something unsettling about the place, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what. With a deep breath to steel her nerves, Sarah pushed open the creaking gates and made her way up the long, winding driveway. Gravel crunched under her sensible flats as gnarled old trees cast eerie shadows across her path. An icy breeze rustled through the branches, carrying the faint sound of girlish laughter. Sarah shivered and quickened her pace. At the massive oak front doors, Sarah hesitated before grasping the tarnished brass knocker. It was shaped like a snarling wolf's head, its eyes seeming to glare at her balefully. She rapped 3 times, the sound echoing ominously. After a long moment, the door creaked open to reveal a severe-looking older woman with steely gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her piercing gaze raked over Sarah critically. "You must be Miss Walker, the new English teacher," she said in clipped tones. "I am Headmistress Blackwood. You're late." "I'm so sorry," Sarah stammered. "The train was delayed and dash." "No excuses," Headmistress Blackwood cut her off sharply. "Punctuality is of utmost importance here at Blackwood Academy. See that it doesn't happen again." "Yes, ma'am. Of course." The headmistress turned on her heel and strode briskly down the dim hallway, leaving Sarah to hurry after her. Oil paintings of stern-faced women lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow Sarah as she passed. The floorboards creaked beneath the faded red carpet runner. "Your classroom is on the 3rd floor," Headmistress Blackwood explained as they climbed a grand curved staircase. "You'll be teaching English literature to our 6th form girls. I trust you've reviewed the curriculum." "Yes, I've gone over everything," Sarah assured her. "I'm very excited to get started." The headmistress made a non-committal noise. "Just remember, Miss Walker, we have very high standards here at Blackwood. Our girls come from the finest families in the country. They are to be shaped into proper young ladies of refinement and culture. I expect you to uphold our traditions and values at all times." "Of course," Sarah nodded. "I understand completely." They reached the 3rd floor landing, where a long hallway stretched into shadowy gloom. Headmistress Blackwood gestured to a door halfway down. "This will be your classroom. Your living quarters are through there." She pointed to another door at the far end of the hall. "Dinner is served promptly at 7 p.m. in the Great Hall. Don't be late." With that, she turned and descended the stairs, leaving Sarah alone in the oppressive silence of the empty hallway. Taking a deep breath, Sarah opened the classroom door and stepped inside. The room was large and airy, with tall windows letting in pale gray light. Rows of polished wooden desks faced a raised platform where an imposing oak lectern stood. Shelves of leather-bound books lined the walls. As Sarah moved further into the room, she noticed something odd. At the back, partially hidden behind a bookcase, was a faded tapestry depicting some kind of ritual scene. Robed figures stood in a circle around an altar where a young woman lay bound. Sarah leaned closer, squinting at the strange imagery. Suddenly, a bell tolled loudly, making her jump. The sound of many footsteps and girlish voices drifted up from below. Classes must be changing. Sarah hurried to take her place behind the lectern as the door opened and students began filing in. The girls were all dressed identically in prim navy blazers and pleated skirts. They took their seats silently, backs straight and hands folded on their desks. 24 pairs of eyes stared at Sarah expectantly. "Good afternoon, class." Sarah began with what she hoped was a welcoming smile. "I'm Miss Walker, your new English teacher. I'm very excited to be here at Blackwood and to get to know all of you. Why don't we start by going around and introducing ourselves?" The girls remained silent, unmoving. Sarah's smile faltered. "All right then, how about I start? As I said, I'm Miss Walker. I just graduated from university and this is my first teaching position. I love literature and I'm looking forward to exploring some wonderful books with you this term. Now, who would like to go next?" Still no response. The girls stared blankly ahead, their faces expressionless. An uneasy feeling crept over Sarah. "Come now, don't be shy," she encouraged. "Surely one of you would like to introduce yourself?" Finally, a girl in the front row slowly raised her hand. Sarah nodded at her gratefully. "We are the sisters," the girl intoned in a flat voice. "We are one." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. "I am sorry?" "We are the sisters," the class repeated in unison. "We are one." Sarah took an involuntary step back, her heart beginning to race. What was going on here? Just then the bell rang again. As one, the girls stood and filed silently out of the room. Sarah watched them go with growing unease. This was not at all what she had expected. Something very strange was happening at Blackwood Academy. That night, Sarah tossed and turned in her narrow bed, unable to sleep. The events of the day kept replaying in her mind. The girls' eerie behavior, the strange tapestry, the oppressive atmosphere of the old mansion. It all added up to something deeply unsettling. A floorboard creaked in the hallway outside her room. Sarah sat up, straining to listen. Soft footsteps padded past her door, followed by hushed whispers. She glanced at the clock. 2:37 a.m. What were students doing up at this hour? Curiosity overcame caution. Sarah slipped out of bed and crept to her door, easing it open a crack. A group of white-clad figures was disappearing around a corner at the end of the hall. Heart-pounding, Sarah followed. The girls led her down twisting corridors and hidden staircases she hadn't known existed. Finally, they emerged into a vast underground chamber lit by flickering torches. Dozens of students stood in concentric circles around a stone altar. Upon it lay a girl bound and gagged. Sarah gasped in horror. The sound echoed in the cavernous space. As one, the assembled girls turned to look at her. Their eyes glowed an unnatural red in the torchlight. "Sisters," a familiar voice rang out. "It seems we have an uninvited guest." Headmistress Blackwood stepped forward, now clad in ornate crimson robes. She smiled coldly at Sarah. "Miss Walker, how kind of you to join us for our little ceremony. You're just in time for the main event." Sarah backed away in terror. "What is this? What are you doing to that poor girl?" "Why, we're simply carrying on a proud Blackwood tradition," the headmistress replied. "You see, every year on the eve of March 8th, International Women's Day, we make a special offering to ensure our continued power and prosperity." "This is insane," Sarah breathed. "I won't let you hurt her." Blackwood laughed cruelly. "My dear, you have no choice in the matter. Sisters, seize her." Dozens of hands grabbed Sarah before she could run. She struggled and screamed as they dragged her towards the altar. The bound girl was hauled roughly to her feet as Sarah was forced down in her place. "You should feel honored, Miss Walker," Blackwood sneered as she raised a wicked-looking dagger. "Your sacrifice will usher in a new era of female domination. The sisterhood will reign supreme." Sarah squeezed her eyes shut as the dagger plunged down. This couldn't be happening. It had to be a nightmare. Suddenly, Sarah jolted awake with a gasp. Sunlight streamed through her bedroom window. She was safe in her own bed, her heart racing. It had all been a terrible dream. Sarah laughed shakily with relief as she got up to prepare for her first real day of teaching. Clearly her nerves had conjured up that ridiculous nightmare. Today would go much better. But as Sarah dressed, a chill ran down her spine. There on her nightstand sat a single red rose, one she was certain hadn't been there the night before. Pinned to it was a note in elegant script. "Welcome to the Sisterhood. The ceremony begins at midnight." Sarah's blood ran cold as the implications sank in. Her nightmare had been all too real. And now she was trapped in the clutches of a sinister cult with no way to escape. The rest of the day passed in a haze of mounting dread for Sarah. She went through the motions of teaching her classes, but her mind was consumed with panicked thoughts of what awaited her that night. The students seemed to watch her with knowing smirks, as if they could sense her fear. When the final bell rang, Sarah hurried back to her room and locked the door. She paced anxiously, debating what to do. Should she try to run? But where would she go in this remote location? And how far would she get before they caught her? Maybe she could appeal to the police or other authorities for help. But would anyone believe such an outlandish story? And what if the Sisterhood's influence extended beyond the school? As the hours ticked by, Sarah's terror grew. She couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were watching her every move. Strange whispers and giggles seemed to echo from the walls. The very air felt charged with malevolent energy. At 11:30 p.m., a soft knock came at her door. Sarah's heart leapt into her throat. "Miss Walker," a girlish voice called. "It's time. We've come to escort you to the ceremony." Sarah remained frozen, hardly daring to breathe. Now, don't be difficult," another voice chided. "You can't hide from us. We always get what we want." The lock clicked open of its own accord. Sarah scrambled backwards as the door swung inward to reveal a group of smiling students. "Come along, Miss Walker," one said sweetly, extending her hand. "Your destiny awaits." Seeing no other choice, Sarah allowed herself to be led from the room. The girls guided her through winding passages and down steep stairs, deeper and deeper into the bowels of the old mansion. Finally, they emerged into the vast underground chamber from Sarah's nightmare. Hundreds of robed figures stood in concentric circles around the stone altar. Torches cast wild shadows on the rough-hewn walls. A low chant filled the air, building in volume and intensity. Sarah was brought to stand before Headmistress Blackwood, who was resplendent in elaborate crimson robes embroidered with arcane symbols. "Welcome, Sister Sarah," Blackwood intoned. "The time has come for you to take your rightful place among us." "Please," Sarah begged. "I don't want any part of this. Just let me go." Blackwood's eyes flashed dangerously. "I'm afraid that's not an option. You've been chosen. There's no escaping your fate now." She gestured to two robed figures, who seized Sarah's arms and began dragging her towards the altar. Sarah struggled wildly, but their grip was like iron. "Stop!" she screamed. "Somebody help me." But her cries were drowned out by the rising chant of the assembled cult. Sarah was forced down onto the cold stone altar and her wrists and ankles were bound with coarse rope. Panic clawed at her chest as Blackwood loomed over her, raising the ritual dagger high. "With this sacrifice, we usher in a new age of female supremacy," Blackwood declared. "The old world of patriarchal oppression will crumble, and the Sisterhood shall reign eternal." The dagger plunged down. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the killing blow, but it never came. Instead, there was a deafening crash as the chamber doors burst open. Shouts and screams of confusion filled the air. Sarah's eyes flew open to see utter chaos erupting around her. A team of armed police officers had stormed into the chamber, led by a petite woman with a determined expression. "This is Detective Inspector Claire Bennett," the woman shouted. "Everyone remain where you are. You're all under arrest." Cultists scattered in panic as officers moved to apprehend them. Headmistress Blackwood snarled in rage, whirling to face the intruders. With inhuman speed, she lunged at Detective Bennett, dagger flashing. But the detective was quicker. In one fluid motion, she drew her gun and fired. Blackwood staggered back, a look of shock on her face. She crumpled to the ground, scarlet blooming across her robes. An officer rushed to untie Sarah from the altar. She sat up, trembling violently as she took in the scene around her. Cultists were being handcuffed and led away. Crime scene technicians swarmed the chamber, documenting evidence. Detective Bennett approached, holstering her weapon. "Are you all right, Miss Walker? We got here just in time, it seems." Sarah nodded shakily. How did you know?" "We've been investigating this cult for months," Bennett explained. "When you were hired, we saw an opportunity to finally infiltrate their ranks. You were our inside woman, though you didn't know it. Sarah's mind reeled as the implications sank in. So this was all a setup? To catch the cult? Bennett nodded. I'm sorry we had to put you through that. But thanks to your bravery, we've finally taken down this insidious organization. You've saved countless lives. As the detective continued debriefing her, Sarah's gaze was drawn to where Headmistress Blackwood's body lay. To her horror, the corpse was rapidly decaying before her eyes, withering and crumbling to dust in a matter of seconds. Sarah blinked in disbelief. When she looked again, there was nothing there but an empty robe. A chill ran down her spine as she realized the Sisterhood's evil might not be so easily defeated after all. In the days that followed, Sarah struggled to process the traumatic events she had endured. The police investigation revealed the full, horrifying scope of the Sisterhood's activities. For decades, they had been secretly indoctrinating and sacrificing young women to fuel their dark rituals. Dozens of arrests were made as the cult's influence was rooted out. But key leaders like Headmistress Blackwood seemed to have vanished without a trace. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the Sisterhood was wounded, but not destroyed. As March 8th International Women's Day approached, an atmosphere of unease settled over the country. There were whispers of strange occurrences and inexplicable phenomena. Women reported vivid, shared nightmares of an impending apocalyptic event. Sarah found herself plagued by terrifying visions. In her dreams, she saw the world engulfed in eldritch horrors as the boundaries between dimensions collapsed. Streets ran red with blood as women turned on men in an orgy of violence. At the center of it all stood Headmistress Blackwood, now transformed into a monstrous avatar of vengeance. On the morning of March 8th, Sarah awoke in a cold sweat, heart pounding. Something felt terribly wrong. The air itself seemed to thrum with malevolent energy. Suddenly, her phone lit up with an emergency alert. Danger! Shelter in place immediately. Do not go outside. Do not look at the sky. Heart racing, Sarah ran to her window and peeked out through the curtains. What she saw made her blood run cold. The sky had turned an unnatural crimson. Swirling vortexes of dark energy crackled with eldritch lightning. In the streets below, chaos reigned. Women of all ages rampaged in a mindless frenzy, attacking any men they encountered. The screams of the dying filled the air. And there, striding through the carnage like a demonic queen, was Headmistress Blackwood. She had transformed into a terrifying abomination, her body elongated and twisted, extra limbs sprouting from her torso, her face a mass of writhing tentacles. In one clawed hand she clutched the ritual dagger, now pulsing with unholy power. Sarah stumbled back from the window, her mind reeling in horror. This couldn't be happening. It had to be another nightmare. But the screams and chaos outside were all too real. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Detective Bennett. Sarah, it's worse than we feared. The Sisterhood has initiated some kind of apocalyptic event. We need your help. Meet me at the old cathedral downtown. Hurry. Sarah's hands shook as she quickly dressed. She had no idea how she could possibly help, but she couldn't just hide while the world fell apart. Steeling her nerves, she crept out of her apartment and into the hellscape beyond. The streets of madness. The scene outside was like something out of a Hieronymus Bosch painting. The blood-red sky cast an eerie glow over everything. Cracks had opened in the earth, spewing forth noxious vapors and writhing tentacles. Grotesque creatures that defied description skittered and slithered through the streets. And everywhere, women had been transformed into frenzied berserkers. Their eyes glowed with unnatural light as they tore into any men they could find. Sarah watched in horror as a group of women dragged a screaming man from his car, ripping him limb from limb with inhuman strength. She ducked into an alley, narrowly avoiding a pack of feral women that ran past. Her heart pounded as she tried to get her bearings. The cathedral was about 10 blocks away. How could she possibly make it there alive? A strangled cry made Sarah whirl around. At the end of the alley, a young boy cowered as his mother advanced on him, face twisted in an insane rictus. Without thinking, Sarah grabbed a broken pipe from the ground and rushed forward. "Hey!" she yelled. "Leave him alone!" The woman's head snapped toward Sarah, a bestial growl emanating from her throat. She lunged with terrifying speed. Sarah swung the pipe with all her might, catching the woman in the temple. She went down hard and didn't get up. Sarah grabbed the boy's hand. "Come on, we have to go." They ran through the nightmarish streets, dodging roving packs of murderous women and eldritch horrors at every turn. Twice they had to hide as Headmistress Blackwood's monstrous form stalked by, leaving destruction in her wake. Finally, they reached the cathedral. Detective Bennett ushered them inside quickly, barricading the heavy doors behind them. "Thank God you made it," she said. "We don't have much time." The final ritual. Inside the cathedral, a small group of survivors had gathered, mostly men, but a few women who had somehow resisted the Sisterhood's influence. They looked shell-shocked and terrified. "What's happening out there?" Sarah asked. "How do we stop this?" Bennett's face was grim. "The Sisterhood has opened a portal to some kind of eldritch dimension. They're trying to remake the world in their image with women as the dominant force. But the energies they've unleashed are too powerful to control. If we don't close that portal soon, reality itself will unravel." "But how?" Sarah pressed. "What can we possibly do against that kind of power?" "There may be a way," said an elderly man, stepping forward. He introduced himself as Professor Armitage, an expert in occult lore. "The Sisterhood's ritual can be reversed, but it will require a great sacrifice." He explained that they needed to perform a counter-ritual at the exact spot where the portal had been opened. It would require the life essence of someone with a strong connection to the Sisterhood. All eyes turned to Sarah. "Me?" she gasped. "But I was never really part of their cult." "No," Armitage said gravely. "But you were chosen as their sacrifice. That forged a powerful mystical link. You may be our only hope of closing the portal." Sarah's mind raced. The thought of sacrificing herself was terrifying. But as she looked around at the frightened survivors, at the young boy whose life she had saved, she knew she had to try. "I'll do it," she said quietly. "Tell me what I need to do." The plan was quickly formed. They would fight their way to Blackwood Academy, where the portal had been opened in that underground chamber. Sarah would give her life essence in a ritual to seal it shut. Armed with whatever weapons they could cobble together, the small band of survivors ventured out into the apocalyptic Hell Cape. The journey was a nightmare of blood and terror. They lost half their number to the hordes of possessed women and otherworldly monstrosities that roamed the streets. When they finally reached Blackwood Academy, it had been transformed into a twisted parody of itself. The walls writhed as if alive, windows wept blood, and impossible geometries hurt the eye to look upon. They fought their way down to the ritual chamber, now a seething pit of cosmic horror. At its center, a swirling vortex of chaotic energies threatened to tear reality apart. "Quickly!" Armitage shouted over the otherworldly howling. "We must begin the ritual." Sarah was positioned before the portal as Armitage began to chant in some inhuman language. She felt the mystical energies building around her, pulling at her very essence. Suddenly, a bone-chilling shriek split the air. Headmistress Blackwood's monstrous form burst into the chamber, tentacles writhing in fury. "You dare defy the Sisterhood," she roared. "You cannot stop what we have begun." She lashed out with razor-sharp appendages. The survivors fought desperately to hold her off as Armitage continued the ritual. Sarah felt her life force draining away as the portal began to fluctuate. In a last mighty effort, Blackwood surged forward, impaling Armitage on a spiked tentacle. The old man's chant faltered as blood bubbled from his lips. The portal began to stabilize once more. "No!" Sarah cried. With the last of her strength, she grabbed the ritual dagger from Blackwood's clawed hand and plunged it into her own heart. "I give myself freely," she gasped. "Close the portal." In this madness, as Sarah's lifeblood spilled out, a blinding light erupted from the portal. Blackwood screamed in rage and agony as she was drawn into the collapsing vortex. In a final flash, the portal winked out of existence. Sarah's vision began to fade as she collapsed to the ground. The last thing she saw was the sky returning to normal through a hole in the ceiling. Then darkness took her. Epilogue. Sarah's eyes fluttered open. She was lying in a hospital bed, monitors beeping softly around her. Sunlight streamed through a nearby window. Detective Bennett sat by her bedside, smiling in relief. "Welcome back," she said gently. "You've been unconscious for weeks. We weren't sure you'd make it." Sarah's mind whirled with confused memories. What happened? The portal. Blackwood. "It's over," Bennett assured her. "Whatever you did, it worked." The portal closed and the madness ended. Most people don't even remember what happened. It's like a mass shared nightmare. Sarah tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in her chest. "But I thought. I sacrificed myself. I should be dead." Bennett's expression turned thoughtful. "By all rights, you should be. The doctors can't explain it. It's like something wanted you to live." A chill ran down Sarah's spine as she recalled her final moments in the chamber. As she'd felt her life slipping away, she'd sensed something. An ancient, unfathomable presence. It had seemed almost impressed by her sacrifice. Sarah shuddered. She had a feeling her ordeal wasn't truly over. The Sisterhood had been defeated, but there were older and darker things out there. And now they knew her name. As if in response to her thoughts, Sarah noticed a single red rose on her bedside table. Pinned to it was a note in familiar, elegant script. "This isn't over, sister. See you next year." Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized her nightmare was far from finished. It was only the beginning. As the echoes of Sarah's terrifying ordeal fade into silence, we're left with the chilling realization that some horrors never truly end. The Sisterhood may have been defeated for now, but their dark influence lingers, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Remember, dear listeners, that the boundaries between our world and the realms beyond are thinner than we'd like to believe. Who knows what ancient evils are watching, waiting for their chance to break through? If this tale has sent shivers down your spine and left you craving more, then you've come to the right place. Haunted Whisper is your gateway to the darkest corners of the human psyche and the terrifying unknown that lies just beyond our perception. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more spine-chilling stories that will keep you up at night. Hit that notification bell to ensure you never miss a new upload. Each week, we bring you fresh nightmares to fuel your darkest dreams. And if you're feeling brave, why not share your own eerie experiences in the comments below? After all, every whisper of terror adds to the tapestry of horror we weave together. Until next time, keep looking over your shoulder and remember, in the world of Haunted Whisper, the next scare is always just around the corner. Sleep tight and don't let the eldritch horrors bite.